Hello, this is Mr. Hornby 83. Welcome to the Mr. Hornby 83 show. Today I am reviewing Tales from the Hood Part 2. Now let me go to scenes before I start the review. Alright, so let's start out with the beginning. We see the devil pulling up to talk to, I guess, the main villain of the movie, which is Dumas Beach, which I'll talk about what the whole plot of this movie is. So apparently Satan, who's played by Keith David this time around instead of Clarence Williams III, is here to tell stories to this new type of cop thing called the Robo-Patriot. And what it's really meant to do is to round up pretty much the African Americans, which is what Dumas wanted to do. But he starts telling the stories about, which we're getting ready to see all the stories here. But he begins telling the stories, and it starts with one called Good Golly, which is about these golly dolls here, which I'll talk about more in a sec. So it starts out with two friends going to a African American museum that talks about all the culture of what, and all the slavery stuff that went on and all that. And the girl right there with the blonde hair, she wants to get a golly doll. She's so in love with the golly dolls because apparently her grandma collected them, and now she wants to collect them. And I think there's more than just, a racial undertone for this. It might be the fact that, maybe they're making fun of collectors. I don't know. But, so anyway, he tells them, hey, look, you can't buy the gollies from here because, first of all, these things are, they all have a story behind them. There's a reason why they're in that museum. It's not like they're just there for show, like what the girl wants it to be there for. But, this story starts out pretty decent. It even shows the doll from the first Tales from the Hood. But then it gets goofy and campy right toward the end of this story, which, well, her brother, which right there, is dating her friend, which, she dated her friend's brother first, and It's just a whole crazy mess. But anyway, and then they find, like, one of those, slave whipping posts, and then she's leaning up, and he's talking about, hey, I could spank your booty, and, you could call me daddy, and blah, 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 because they were more interested in having sex with each other than, what his sister was interested in, which was collecting a golly doll. So she gets the golly doll she wants, which is this one right here, but she ends up dropping it because, like, some strange, weird activities happen, and after it kills her brother and her friend, she tells it, oh, I love you, I want to be with you. So she has sex with the golly doll. She gets pregnant with a bunch of little golly juniors, which I'm going to jump to the next set of scenes. What the fudge? Anyway, I guess, but, after she has sex with the golly, she has a bunch of little gollies, which once she gives birth to them, they end up killing her because a bunch come out of her, and, like, it's a weird, crazy, campy story. But anyway, this guy, he told her what would happen if she tried to take the golly doll and all that. She didn't listen, so she says she wants to get free or whatever. She's not gonna say nothing. He's like, well, I can't let you out of here. This would be something hard to explain. Which, yeah, you're having a bunch of golly dolls explode out of your stomach. Of course it's going to be something weird. But anyway, this does stick with the theme of the stories from the first one. But the first one, a lot of the stories were a little bit more serious. And I'll talk about that once I get to the sacrifice story, which I have a little bit of issue with the sacrifice story, which I'll talk about when I get to that story. Alright, so that's how that story ends. let's go to the next story, which is, Dumas wants the devil to tell the Robo Patriot about gangsters, which right here, these gangsters right here. I mean, it doesn't do justice to do it like this, but but him and his two henchmen, I guess they are, want that pimp's money. The pimp's name is Cliff, and the one that you see right there on the side kills him because he talks about how he heard about how someone was digging in his butt while he was in prison because the guy's acting real tough and all that. And he's like, yeah, you're real tough now, but that ain't what I heard when you were in the pen. I heard someone was digging up in there. So the guy kills him. Then we get this, then we get introduced to this fake psychic who pretends that he could talk to the dead, but the thing is, he really can't. He has a group of people working for him that, I guess they attach wires in that go straight to their headset to get info on these people so he could fake like he's talking to the dead. They write down notes for him so he could put it up. And this lady was having a conversation with one of her friends that she was worried about her husband cheating on her and blah, 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 blah. By the way, this guy they're killing, Cliff, was an ex-pimp. He went legit. I don't know what caused him to go legit, but he ends up going legit. And he's trying to help, kids that struggle with getting into schools and that from the hood and that. And that's pretty much what he was, saying. But then we get to the point to where the other henchman, which you do not see in this, scene picture here, the other henchman sees this fake psychic on there, acting like he's talking to this lady, acting like he channeled this lady's husband from the dead. And he, feeds her a bunch of gibberish, and she believes that he's a real psychic and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so this is Cliff's girlfriend, and she's trying to find out what happened to Cliff and how he died and all that. And she's trying to ask this guy, because I guess she's seen the same thing that this guy's henchman seen. So he was gonna probably fake his way through that. Who knows? But then this guy and his other two henchmen come and tell this guy they want to talk to Cliff. They want to find out where Cliff's money is, but Cliff wouldn't tell them, and he's alive. I don't think he'd tell him when he's dead. He even makes a joke about that guy's, mom. Talk about, I got the meanest, baddest hoe. And he ends up saying your mom. Dude gets real mad about that, but, so anyway, they're at a seance. Cliff realizes he's a fraud, and he's like, man, they're going to kill me if I'm not real, because he even tries to tell them, hey, I'm not really a real psychic. I don't really talk to dead. I just make that crap up on TV. And then, the guy talking to Cliff that's, interrogating him, which is the one right there on the right-hand side, says, well, you know what? If you can't talk to Cliff and the dead, we'll just, mug you, kill you, and take what you got. So he goes to put on an act. He's like, he knows he's screwed and all that, but he goes to put on an act. But somehow or another, he does find a way to talk to dead, because I can't remember that guy's name. I've only watched this movie once, so I remember Cliff's name because they say it a lot, but, But, the gangster and his dudes, he channels a lot of people that gangster and his dudes, and his henchmen, pretty much killed in past lifetimes. Even one of them killed one of their family members, which is the one that killed Cliff. And then Cliff finally takes over his body. And Cliff makes them all pay. This is one of the stories in this movie I did like. I did like this one. I like when somebody does you wrong and they get their comeuppance. And they pretty much did Cliff wrong, so they got their comeuppance because Cliff kills them all. But the one henchman, his death's the weakest of the three. The bald-headed guy, not this one right here that's on the side. He gets a good death. But the other one gets kind of a lame one. He takes a bunch of glass, puts it in his mouth. Says, you talk too much, you eat too much, blah, 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 crams it in their mouth, and, it's pretty much the last half of the movie is just Cliff takes over, kills those guys. His girlfriend's excited that now he's got a new body, and and then the gangster's like, oh, well, you know, hey, it's a good trade-off because, hey, this dude's rich, he's loaded, he's a celebrity. But Cliff does say, yeah, well, you know, he's like, what else could you know, I mean, pretty much the same. He's like, yeah, except for my Johnson was bigger. And then he's like, oh, that's overrated, it ain't that right, talking to Cliff's girlfriend, but she's like, yeah, whatever. But anyway, so he kills them all, and then he becomes a real psychic that can talk to the dead, but Cliff is still in his body at the end of the story, so I guess Cliff lives that life, and maybe he helps, you know, the kids like he wanted to. So there's a death for the main guy right there, the lead gangster. There's his death. And he had a very brutal death. I think it was the best death out of the three. I mean, because the other guy just had his neck twisted around and died. But this also fit into the original Tales from the Hood mythos and stories from the original movie. But I do like this story. The sacrifice did too, but there's just something about the sacrifice that I have to mention, which I will when I get to that story. Because now we're on to the date night episode. Yeah, he dies last too. So this is about two young men who pretend to be TV producers or movie producers, and they're predators. They're pretty much sexual predators. They feed on girls' hopes and dreams, get invited to their house, party with them, and then after that, they drug them with some roofies and try to rape them, but come to find out, they're vampires. So, a lot of people say this is one of the weakest stories. I kind of like it because, you know, and the reason why this story came about is because Dumas is hitting on some of the women that are working for him and, like, making sexual advances toward them, and they're not, you know, happy about it, but they're like, well, he's the boss, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the devil sees that. He's like, oh, yeah, this guy's rapey too. So that's why he tells this story. I'm guessing that's why he tells the story. But, and then come to find out that these chicks are vampires. They set these guys up and really tricked them. One thing I gotta say is, these guys do this a while, and from what it looks like, they drug these women, they rape them, and then they record it. So, how have they not got caught yet? And how has no one caught on to their little, you know, gag in the first place? I mean, even, you know, the one dude's friend, which, you know, this guy right here, he's the one that does it. His friend goes along with it, you know. So, even his friend kind of calls him out like that. Like, how does that still work? He's like, I don't know, bro, but hey, it still works. And, you know, but they bit off a little more than they could chew with these two. Anyway, so they bite them, and then they put them in here with these guys, and they let these guys loose to eat the leftovers. So, that's pretty much what happens to those guys. And, you know, like I said, I kind of like the story because, you know, and Dumas, he's like, oh, you know, boys will be boys, blah, 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 and they got to do that to be men. You know, I never had to rape anybody to freaking become a man, so I don't know where he got that ideal at. I don't know. But you can tell throughout the whole movie, Dumas is a complete douchebag anyway. Alright, now to the final story, which is The Sacrifice. Now this one, yes, it fits in with the Tales from the Hood stories. The only problem I got, yes, you know, the main guy is Henry, and his wife's having visions of Emmett, which they introduce in this first scene of this story right here. Emmett apparently, I guess, you know, slept with this guy's daughter or whatever. I guess because he was in love with her. And the guy beats him to death. And Emmett and Henry, he's working for, you know, Henry's working for this racist white guy. He's a campaign manager for him. He's like the campaign manager for that guy to become governor. And he tells Henry, hey, if I get my governorship, you get to be mayor of this town. But, in his speech, he's talking about, we're going to bring this town back to, its old morals and blah, 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 blah. And honestly, my issue with this whole story, it's not the story itself. It's, kind of a weird thing. Yeah, this guy shouldn't be working for a racist guy that's trying to, get African Americans' rights to vote taken away. I think that's completely, terrible. No, freaking total douchebag would, total racist douchebag would do that. But the thing is, Emmett, he's not clear, what the message should be for Henry, because really, look, right here, he puts Henry in an alternate dimension, because, in the dimension that Harry's in right now, or, yeah, in an alternate timeline, in the timeline Henry's in now, he's respected by a lot of white, people he knows, like the doctor, and the guy he's doing the campaign management for, and pretty much, so he gets put in this alternate timeline because he's not understanding, all the sacrifices, all, people like Martin Luther King and all them made for the rights for blacks to have the right to do certain things and have votes and, get to be with, whatever race of women they want to be with. The thing is, and I said it in the commentary, Henry randomly dies in the current timeline he's supposed to be in. Yeah, we see here that, yes, this is the alternate timeline. He's getting beat down by the Klan Patrol is what the thing was called. But the reason why it don't make sense to me is, first of all, Emmett's like, yeah, no, you gotta be willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. And what sacrifice? Because, he wasn't against the guy he was campaigning for. He wasn't against him, voting to close the polls for blacks' rights to vote and all that. He was actually for it. Or, he was just working for it. Maybe he was blinded by it. And maybe, Emmett was trying to... Now, see, that would have made sense if, Emmett was trying to open his eyes to what this guy was and all that. But that wasn't even the case. He wasn't even trying to open the guy's eyes. He's like, oh, you got to make this sacrifice. What sacrifice? I mean, now, had Henry decided, hey, I'm going to be against this and I'm not going to let you take, African Americans' rights away to vote and all that, I could see him making that sacrifice and being turned on by them guys because he decided to change his mind and, I could see that. But there was no message that Henry was sending. He just died. And he was working for a racist guy. But, like I said, he don't really have a message. Now, how Emmett said, hey, you need to open your eyes and realize what this guy's doing. And then Henry's like, yeah, I see now. I'm going to open my eyes. I'm going to be against this guy. He even tries to tell him that, but Emmett's like, well, it's too late for that now. Either you can make your choice and die, or, I can make my choice to be a coward and live, and blah, blah, blah. But, because they do show Emmett saying, hey, I should be allowed to be with whoever I want to be. Doesn't matter what you freaking say. And that's what he died from, and like I said, there's no message for Henry. It's just like, I don't know. I think they should have did that story a little bit better. I mean, I like what the message they were trying to do, but they didn't give him a message to have in the story. Henry doesn't have no message because you don't see what's happening in the alternate timeline. Well, the people that's there right now don't see what's going on in the alternate timeline. They only see what's happening in that current timeline that they're in. So, they're not seeing this, Klan Patrol attacking Henry. And his wife had turned on him and said, they raped her and blah, blah, blah. You don't see that part in the timeline that Henry's in right here. This is the alternate timeline. Like I said, he put him in a different timeline. But yeah, and and that's the thing with the original Tales from the Hood. The messages they got across, they did a lot better than what they did in this movie. Because the message where, that one reverend standing up against them racist, corrupt cops, and then they all kill him, and they have the black cop lie and say, hey, or have the black cop cover for him, and then he's guilty about that, and then the reverend says, hey, you know what, you're going to correct your mistake, you're going to help me take these guys down, whether you like it or not, and then he also pays at the end, too, for betraying that reverend by pretty much, taking the fall for the death of the other cops. So, or like the last story they did at the end of the first one, where it's like, I think it's Tyrone, about Tyrone, where he's, killing his own kind instead of, trying to make peace with his own kind and all that, Them stories they did perfectly. These stories here, just, aside from the medium one, you understood why, what was going on with that. But, all the other stories really didn't make too much sense. They also mentioned Black Lives Matter in this at the beginning, right before he does the good golly story. He's like, well, here's one particular story where black life did matter. And then that's when he says, oh, good golly. So now, like I said, I know they were trying to deliver a powerful message, but they kind of, I don't know, the way they read it in it, and, the way they did it, this could have been a better story had they gave Henry a message to have in the movie, which they really didn't. I mean, I guess you could say in the alternate timeline, you could see how easily they all turned on him. I guess that's their message. I don't know. Wow, this one's been going on for a while. Probably one of my longest reviews I've done in a long time. But anyway, now let's get to the wraparound. The big devil reveal, the reveal of the Robo-Patriot, and I think this Dumas guy had like some plants in the audience, like, has the Patriot detect those ones, and they're like, oh, these future killer murders, or blah, 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 y'all need to step up, and then a couple people step up and, come out. I think the funniest thing, though, is when the Robo-Patriot scans, Dumas, Beach, and freaking, he talks about, trying to save the world from future criminals that might do something to kill somebody or save the world. And the thing looks over, he's like, oh yeah, I have detected a very big threat to to this place. He's like, Mr. Dumbass Bitch. and the robot keeps calling him that throughout the whole thing, too. While he's chasing him, he's like, come back, dumbass bitch. And he's like, I'm going to kill the associates of dumbass bitch. I thought that was funny. It was hilarious, man. Yeah, the CG might have looked cheesy and crappy, but it was still hilarious. And he shoots Dumas in, I guess, the stomach or whatnot. Then, the devil pulls up. He's like, here, you need a ride. Get away from that thing. He gets in the car. Then we get the big devil reveal. Honestly, I know at the end of the original one, when Clarence Williams III reveals he's the devil, the reason why he started acting cuckoo was because they hit him in the back of the head. They were threatening to kill him, and he's acting cuckoo to maintain his composure and keep them fools shocked that he's really the devil and they died and burned in hell. Because pretty much you see at the beginning, right after they kill the one guy, which is Tyrone, I think it was, right after they kill him, boom, the cops or the gang that guy was working for shows up and kills them. So, I think Keith David, a lot of people say, well, Keith David was good. I think he was a little too much over the top, especially toward the end. And then, throughout the movie, when someone mentions, like, when they'd say something about, nobody knows about shit or whatever, and he's like, yeah, the shit. And he keeps doing that, and it's like you're reminding us of the better movie, because this movie is inferior to the first one. I really love the first one a lot. I love Tales from the Hood Part 1 a lot. That is like one of the best movies ever. And to wait this long for an inferior sequel like this, for it to be, pretty much not that good. Especially, a lot of these stories could be really good had they had, like with this sacrifice one. Yeah, I know there's a message in there, but what was Henry's message going to be? What's he going to sacrifice himself for? Because he was working for the guy. And yeah, in the alternate timeline, he gets betrayed by all the white people that he was working with. But in that timeline, he was still loved and respected by him. So what was his message? Unless Emmett said, hey, you got to open your eyes. You got to realize what this guy's doing. If you're not going to listen to your mom or anyone else, you need to listen to me. And, and then he's like, yeah, I realize you're right. Or, like, he took him back in time and showed some crap, or took him to, a spot where, he sees that guy really, not the guy he thinks he is and that, and woke Henry up, and Henry decided to go against this guy. I think it would have been a better story. It would have made more sense. I mean, I like the story still. I just think it kind of didn't make sense with what message was Henry supposed to get across if, or maybe he, took him back in time and showed him, hey, this guy you're working for right here, which is in the back, this guy right here is who he was working for, or running the campaign for. If he would have took him and showed him how this guy really was behind closed doors and that, I think that might have changed Henry's mind, but they didn't do that. And yeah, I understand that the runtime was a little long too, so they had to kind of shorten things up, but this story kind of suffered from it, because this story should have been, I'd say probably would have been the best story in the movie had, they gave Henry a message to deliver before he died. But that really wasn't the case. So, I don't know. If they make a part 3, I hope they, focus on making better stories. Because, yeah, I know a lot of people didn't like the vampire one. I liked it a little bit, but, still, yeah, it didn't fit in with the theme of Tales from the Hood. And it really wasn't in the hood anyway, but the other stories did. One thing is, with the Good Golly one, it kind of got a little, it started out good, then it got a little over the top, corny and campy, and blah. And I know, yeah, there was a lot of corny, campy parts in the first one, but not as bad as this one. Another thing, too, like I said, there's a lot of comedy in it, but it is funny when that Patriot's like, dumbass bitch. The guy's name is Dumas Beach, but, he's like, dumbass bitch. Come here, Mr. Dumbass Bitch. I'm gonna kill the associates of dumbass bitch. Yeah, I think Keith David was a little over top in this role. And they did remind us a little bit of the better Tales from the Hood movie, which was the first one. And really, if it wasn't for, had to sacrifice, did something more other than this guy just randomly dies in the timeline he's currently in, instead of, it transform, or you know what would have been a better ideal? You transform this timeline into that current timeline, where right there where he's, right before he dies. You transform that into that, and people see how quickly they turned on Henry, even though he was loyal to those guys and worked for them and was a campaign manager and all that. Then, that would have been a different story, but I don't know. It's crazy. But, overall, though, I gotta say, like I said, I love the first Tales from the Hood movie. This one, like I said, probably the best, my favorite is this one. I would have liked this one, well, not that one. I would have liked this one more had it not gotten too campy and over the top with stuff. But I will say, in the subtle moments, though, I will say Keith David did really good in the subtle moments and all that, so it was pretty good with the subtle moments. I just can't bring myself to give this movie a higher score than 2.5 out of 5. I mean, like I said, I think I probably would have made a score higher had they, gave Henry a message in this story. But, But, yeah, that's my thoughts on Tales in the Hood. I give it 2.5 out of 5 because there was a lot of good things, and up until, you know, the ending of the sacrifice, only because they didn't give Henry a message. Up till the ending of the sacrifice, it was a pretty good story. I mean, if they would have gave Henry a message on why he's being killed, instead of sticking him in an alternate timeline, getting him killed in the alternate timeline, and then, you know, it just reverses everything. Or if it had been a test for Emmett for, you know, Henry to take the ultimate sacrifice, that would also made sense to me. But, you know, that, you know, Henry was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, and then, you know, he could have opened his eyes and said, hey, you need to stop working for this guy. You need to not let this guy vote. You should vote against him closing the polls for the black Americans to vote. Because if you don't, then you're just pathetic. But, you know, they didn't do any of that. And, you know, and yeah. So, yeah. 2.5 out of 5. Let me know what you guys think of Tales from the Hood Part 2. Like I said, I like the first one. I'm not going to say like. I love the first one. It is a cult classic. It's an amazing movie. The tone on it's a little more serious than the tone in this too, so, you know. Yes, it still has some comedy moments and all that, but, you know, the tone in this is a little bit better than, the tone in this is not as good as the tone in the first one, but there was a lot, yeah, like I said, there was comedy moments in the first one, but it was pretty much kind of a serious movie, and this one just got campy over the top, and, you know, so. Yeah, before I end this, though, give a few shout-outs real fast. First off, shout-out to Heavy Metal Turtle. He just did a Friday 13th artwork, Halloween artwork. He also did some Hello Kitty cat Converse. You have to watch the video to see what's going on there. Hello Kitty, you know, Converse shoes. Also, give a shout out to Elite Best 3. He does a lot of the PUBG videos and all that. So if you like PUBG and you want to see, you know, videos, people playing that game, check that out. My son, the Black Ops Killer, he does a lot of Fortnite videos lately. I think he just did a return. Also, he did a video from New York when we were leaving and everything. But he also recently just did a Return to Friday 13th because he just got the game back because it's free on PlayStation Store for the month of Halloween. Yeah, oh yeah, JR's Gameplays and More, giving him a shout out. Cincy Nerd, give him a shout out. Who else? I guess that's pretty much it for right now. But, this video went on longer than I thought it would. But I had a lot to say, especially about the last story. I mean, like I said, I liked it up until the, you know, ending part, because they didn't, just because they didn't give Henry a message to deliver. If they gave Henry a message to deliver, I think it would have made a, you know, a better story. But, yeah. And, oh yeah, Keith David, by the way, does not turn into Satan at the end of this, like Clarence Williams III did in the first one. He's like, yeah, this ain't no funeral home, and this ain't the Terrordome, motherfuckers. This is hell. And then the dudes just burned. And pretty much, you know, Keith David was just over the top. He's like, this ain't no vehicle. This ain't no blah, 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 and, you know, this is hell. Welcome to hell, motherfucker. And then, like, he's got devil horns, and he's doing some crazy over-the-top laugh, like some kind of super villain from a superhero movie, like, anyway. That was pretty funny, though, even though I thought it was really corny. Anyway, I do love how the robot's just chasing him. He's like, Mr. Dumbass Bitch. But yeah, that'll do it. Catch you guys later. Peace out.